Gerry, we're live, man.
Okay, I'm here.
Thanks for coming on.
It's a pleasure.
People ask you a whole bunch of stuff, and it's typically about short selling and Harvey Norman. Obviously, we're passionate about meat. Always wanted to be a farmer is a line that is said about you before. Your passion for agriculture and your investment in agriculture, where did it all start?
Well, I'm a country kid. Went to school at Bathurst and Katoomba and stuff like that. So I've always grown my own fruit and vegetables. I've worked on farms in the school holidays. And so if anyone ever said to me, what are you going to do when you grow up? I'd say, I'll be a farmer. It was never anything else.
Yeah.
And so then when I did grow up, I got to 17, 18 or whatever, and I thought, well, I've got no money. How am I going to be a farmer? And I'd worked on farms, so you can't make any money. So I went to university. And then somehow or other I got involved with Harvey Norman and electrical and furniture. And then at age 30, I thought, I'll have enough money, I'll go back and be a farmer. But by the time I was 30, I was making a lot of money. And then I thought, I can't afford to go back there. So I never went back to become a farmer, but then I did because I started to buy farms and I started to breed horses and breed cattle and, just...
But so I get that part. You'd been unbelievably successful, which is incredible in itself because it all started selling vacuum cleaners. The idea to start investing in farms, was it just you had the money and you loved the farm, or was an idea presented to you?
No. I just love farming and growing or breeding or anything like that. So from my point of view, I was just doing something I always wanted to do.
Yeah.
My biggest problem was I would have actually liked to physically do it as well.
Yeah.
But you can't run electrical shops all across the country and furniture shops and run a farm too. So you do a bit, but you could never do what you thought you would always want to do. And then, but you just keep buying farms. I bought another farm in New Zealand just now.
What'd you buy in New Zealand?
I've got two farms in New Zealand now. I've got two thoroughbred studs, and one in Karaka and one in Matamata. And I've just bought another one in Matamata. And the country in Matamata is some of the best country in New Zealand. I've got no irrigation. I've got this wonderful country, and it's very expensive. It's like $80,000 a hectare, but it's as good a land as you can get.
In the world.
And I'm trying to breed top horses.
Yeah.
If I've got the right property, it's going to give me hopefully a bit of an advantage.
Yeah, understand. What was your first investment into agriculture?
Oh, I'd say I bought a farm in Armidale in 1972.
Productive farm?
It was a cattle farm at the time, cattle and sheep. And then I turned it into a horse farm as well. So it had cattle and had sheep and then it had horses and it had more horses and more horses and gradually I had more horses. And so that was my first farm in 1972.
Yeah.
I was 33 at the time. So then over the years I've just kept buying different properties.
Yeah. And what about the businesses itself, like Security Foods as an example? Where did that concept come from with the Wagyu? And
well, I was talking to John Singleton one day and he was telling me about this bloke and he had Wagyu and I said, oh, I'm really interested in that.
This is before everyone knew about Wagyu other than in Japan, yeah?
Well, no, this bloke had some here.
Yeah.
And so this would be 20 years ago or something. So I met him and I said, listen, I wouldn't mind getting into this business with Wagyu and that. And so I did bit by bit.
Yeah.
And then the guy that was running one of my farms, John Griffiths, he's a vet and he was into cattle, always loved cattle. I always thought he should have been a butcher. But we went into it together. So then we started to breed Wagyu and it was going really well. And then we really ramped it up. And at one stage we had 25,000 head of Wagyu cattle. And then feed prices went through the roof, drought, dumping. I lost $50 million. And so now I've dropped it down to 6,000 or 7,000 head, and now I find I've got back to 12,000 head now.
Yeah.
But now I'm making a bit of money, not a lot. But I just like the idea of breeding cattle. I mean, we had Simmentals and we used to show them at the Royal Easter Show. I've bred Chianinas. Herefords. I've had dairy farms.
Yeah.
So, pretty much I've had something to do with nearly every breed of cattle you can think of.
Yeah, yeah. And Kumbuna, wasn't it, the dairy farm that was...
One of my great disasters.
So what happened there, Gerry?
Well, I met this guy that had a dream, and he owned a farm, and it was probably worth about 25 million.
Yeah. Here, New South Wales?
In Victoria, Shepparton.
Yeah, beautiful.
So he had this farm, and he wanted to develop this dream of his and have 6,000 breeding cattle, genetics, the best breed, the best quality dairy cattle you can get, and bulls and all the rest. So I bought the dream, and so unfortunately he ended up as bad a partner and he was just a dreamer. He
didn't do anything.
But then he put another 10 million of his own money in, and I put another 10 million in, and at the end of the day, the thing was just doomed. And so I lost 70 million. He lost 35 million. And you tell people you just lost 100 million in 3 or 4 years in a dairy farm, they say, no one can do that. I mean, we created a world record of how much you can lose in such a short period of time. It's not possible. Every dairy farmer in the country says, yeah, bullshit, mate, you couldn't have lost that, but we did.
But what was it? He just, there's demand there for milk and cheese and...
I know, but people have dreams. And when people have dreams and they've got no money and I back them, I nearly always lose my money. In fact, I always do.
But he sounds like he had money too, though.
I know. So he had the money. So then I'm thinking to myself, well, he's got the money.
Did he make the money, though?
Yeah, he made the money.
He made it?
Yeah,
from dairy farming or from something else?
No, from other things.
Other things. So was he a city farmer that had a dream?
Yeah, but he knew dairy cattle. It was his hobby. It was his passion.
Yeah.
So when you meet
I know how to surf, but I'm not going to make a living out of it.
Well, this bloke obviously believed, and if you asked him what went wrong now, he'd blame me. He'd say it was all my fault.
How's it your fault? You're the investor, yeah?
I know, but I didn't keep going with him. And I'm saying to him, mate, we're going to lose 100 million. You want me to keep going? This is madness.
Yeah.
Right? Get the receiver in now.
Yeah, and the banks were involved too, yeah? Like, it wasn't just you.
Oh, yeah, I bought the bank out.
You bought the bank out?
Yeah,
well,
so we owed the bank 40 million or something. That
so
was
you
the
bought
NAB.
them out?
I bought them out. So from my point of view, I had to get control to put it into receivership because he owned 50.1% or something.
Yeah.
So I had to get control.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd be still losing money right now.
Throwing money into it.
He wouldn't be losing any, it'd be me.
Yeah, get it. And who bought it, Gerry, out of receivership?
No, well, the Perriches and the Moxie, they've got Moxie farms and all that sort of thing, and they're very good operators.
Yeah.
So I've known them for a long time. And I think they'll do very well out of it.
Have you got any stake in that? Or
no, none at all.
You just dusted your money?
But I pretty much guarantee they'll do very well because these guys know how to operate. I mean, I can run an electrical shop. I can run Harvey Norman. I'm good at what I'm doing. But I'm not good at dairy. I was like a disaster.
Did you enjoy it though? Other than losing the money, did you enjoy
I enjoyed the first part of it, where the dream and being involved in having a dairy farm that would be one of the biggest in Australia, that we'd produce more litres of milk per cow than anyone had ever done before. And we did get it up to 42 litres a day.
Yeah.
And when we started, we were around 28 to 30. So we got it up substantially. And some cows can produce 60 and 70 litres a day.
Yeah.
So if you can get your genetics right and your feed program right, and you need to get 50 cents and above a litre to make it a chance. Yeah. And if you can get 60 cents a litre, you'll make a fortune.
Good money. Yeah, I get it. You seem to want to back the dreamers. Peter Andrews and his program back in the early 2000s or late 1900s with what we're doing to our land and his whole dream of fixing our arid land. Can you talk us through that for people that don't know the story, give a little bit of context around what the problem was with the land and his horse stud and what he was trying to do and ultimately what failed there also?
Well, I first met Peter Andrews in the mid-70s. He was breeding horses and so was I. And he'd tell me all these things about what he's doing and, You got to get involved with me one day and all that sort of thing. Well, I never did. And then I bought a horse stud in the Hunter Valley in about, 2000 or a bit before. And suddenly Peter Andrews appears. I said, mate, what are you doing here? He said, I'm going to help you. And I said, I've waited for you to buy something, and so we'll get involved and we'll do all these things. And then I went out and had a look at his farm and what he'd done in the Bylong Valley. And I said, hell, you do know what you're talking about. And so...
What had he done, Gerry?
Well, he's renowned for being able to read the landscape, if you like. So he can look at a property and he can say, if you've got some water, this is what you can do. If you haven't got water, you can still do some things. But if you can use the water that you've got, you can do certain things that'll give you a lot more productivity and fertile land and all that sort of thing. So now we've been working together on the horse stud I've got in the Hunter Valley for the last nearly 20 years. And, I've spent hours and hours and days with him. And, I can go out on the farm with him all day and we'll walk around and talk about this and that and what we can do here and what we can do there. And my mate John Singleton, he was half an hour with Peter Andrews and get me away. He's a madman.
He's a madman. He sounds like a madman.
Well, he's not a madman. He's another passionate
human
individual.
Being. Yeah, no, I get that.
So from my point of view, when I meet people that are not your normal person, what I mean is that they've got an ability or a desire, a passion, something. They're more interesting to me than
the average bloke.
Because the average bloke, you talk to the average bloke, you talk to the next average bloke, and it's all the same conversation.
Yeah, I get it. But what was he trying to do though, Gerry? Like he had, his belief, correct me if I'm wrong, was that Australia has very salty soil, and that if you could slow down water, because we get water, but it typically all just runs off. So if you could slow it down and let it actually leach into the soil, then you could get very fertile land. But he seemed to be able to do that, and then he took his eye off the thing that made him money, which is his racehorses and things, and literally lost the farm. But what was his end goal? And you invested money in him. What were you trying to achieve by investing in him, other than keeping him afloat?
Well, what bloke would be so passionate to dream about how he's going to change the Australian landscape, and yet lose his whole family business, his wife, everything. The horses, the whole shooting match. I know, it's even worse. So it's just, that's him. Yeah. So, and I'm there, he's having fights with his son. I'm in the middle sometimes. His son's a really good bloke. He loves his son. The son loves the father. Then they don't talk to each other and have a fight. And because, the son saw his father destroy the family farm, and then the father said, it's still my farm, and it's not, and all anyway, all of that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, Peter is somebody that's got a passion and he's got an ability and he can read the landscape, and he's a good guy for me to get involved with, because we can look at some land and make it more fertile.
So is he doing that on your farm? So the principles he was doing on his farm that was on the Australian Story, that he's taken that and it is being successful in other places?
Yes. I mean, even Twiggy Forrest rang me a few weeks ago and he said, I want you to come up to Western Australia. I bought this property north of somewhere or other. I got Peter Andrews with me. Will you come over? I said, mate, I'm that busy. I can't. You got Peter with you. You two do it together. Yeah. He said, well, I'm just interested in your take on it when I'm talking to Peter, so that I don't get,
sucked into the vortex.
Whatever. Yeah. So, but Peter's been with an awful lot of these people over the years. He's done a lot with so many different people, and a lot of scientists that I've met with him. Yeah. And scientists are people that don't get out on the land very much.
No, they're stuck in a laboratory.
Yeah. So they get out, but they can't wait to get back to that bloody laboratory and office. And it's like practically they're not that good. Yeah. So then they see him and they say, he's actually right. He's practical. I'm not. I know a lot more theory and I can pass an exam. He can't, but
He knew.
He knows what he's doing, so I better take notice. And they all come back and they say, he's actually very good.
Yeah.
Right? But the problem with Peter is a lot of the things he wants to do, no one will let him do.
Why?
Because if you want to, like we've got a stream on barrel on one of my studs, horse studs, and it's going. And he wants to change the system there. But to get it through the bureaucracy is nearly impossible.
Because of all the downstream farms and
all of these
whatever,
things.
yeah.
So years ago, 25, 30 years ago, I built a big dam on a farm I've got in Armidale. It's about 150-acre dam. It's very big. I dammed up
big dam,
I dammed up the creek. No one will let you do that now. But if you go to this place I've got in Armidale now, I reckon it's one of the nicest places in Australia. For 25, 30 years, I've been planting trees. I've got oaks and elms and all sorts of different things. And I've got pelicans. I've got swans breeding there.
Yeah, wow.
And that water now, and I've got gabions that, when floods are on and that sort of thing. I've spent $2 million recently fixing that up. And that water's stored there. And my view is that if you had one just like that every 5 to 10 kilometres down the creek all the way down, you'd have water all the time, everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? And it's because it's a leaking dam, a leaking weir, if you want to call it in a smaller version.
Yeah.
Then it doesn't stop the flow of water at all.
Understand.
But if you try to explain this to most people, they won't accept it. But I reckon I've proven it.
Yeah.
And so...
Well, he proved it too, didn't he? Like his farm looked magnificent.
I know, and he can he'd take people there and they'd put a shovel in the ground anywhere within 5 kilometres.
Yeah.
And they get nothing. And then you've got beautiful earth with worms going all through it. How'd you do that? But he needed water. But all he did was use water in a better way than what people do, because most people are doing it with sprinklers.
Yeah.
And so 80%'s evaporation.
Yeah, evaporation or runoff. Yeah, of course.
But when you're using water without the evaporation, you're still going to get evaporation, but nothing like you'll get with sprinklers.
Yeah.
So you're actually getting a much better result. You're using nearly all your water, and you're storing it, and consequently you get a lot of fertility.
Yeah. How much influence did John Anderson, the Deputy Prime Minister, have during that program, and do you think he did enough?
John Anderson was in Parliament at the time, and he actually stayed at our place with his wife.
He seems like a good guy.
He's a good guy. Yeah. And I think originally John was very sceptical, as most people are, and rightly so. But I would say he was a convert at the end of the day.
Yeah. But
he realised he was dealing with Peter, and Peter's a difficult person to back in a lot of ways, because you think, this could blow up on me. If you're a politician and you think you're going to get a good result, but you might not, or it'll blow up on you, you're not prepared to take a chance. So he's had Malcolm Turnbull up there. He's had politician after politician up there. And so they all walk away. Yeah, I think you're right. But they're scared to act, because what about if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
And then that's the end of my career.
Yeah. They should realise they're all going to get shot anyway, so they might as well have some form of legacy.
Well, it's very difficult when it's a person's career and they're a politician. Yeah. They don't like to go out on a limb. So, and if it destroys their career, people who go out on a limb nearly always get destroyed.
Well, they all lose their job anyway, so...
Yeah, but they want to lose it a bit later rather than soon, don't they? So,
Classic. Louis, can you do me a favour and flick that air conditioning on, man? Sorry, I don't want me and Gerry to melt. But it seems like it's a solution, Gerry. And this is the thing where I get a little bit confused with politicians in particular, that we've got, we're in the middle of one of the worst droughts in living memory in Australia, and there does seem to be a solution, but I wonder how much conflict there are, whether it's with the big pharmaceutical companies and the Monsantos and things that have a vested interest in things not being right, when Mother Nature, doing what Peter and the likes can do. Do you think there is an element of that with agriculture?
Oh, sure. You've got, everyone looks after themselves a bit. So I haven't been putting fertiliser on my place for years and years.
So what do you do?
Well, I just don't use fertiliser.
So just natural
waste. It's organic. And I don't run as many beasts as I could, because if I did it the way most people are doing it, then I'd end up I'd end up doing it like them.
Yeah.
I'm more organic, and then over the years I've played around with, I'm going to produce organic racehorses, but I've never got to that yet. But if you can run a farm organically without fertilisers, then I think that's a good thing to be able to do.
It's a wonderful thing.
A number of people do that. But the more traditional people, they're using their fertiliser. They've got the agronomist, and he tells them what grass you put in and what Roundup you put on.
But it destroys everything. Like this whole monocropping and bombing things with pesticides and herbicides.
I know, but there are arguments both ways.
There's arguments for everything, and you put research for everything. But
but from my point of view, I'd rather go the organic way. But sometimes, I'm guilty of going the other way as well.
Because it's a quick solution sometimes.
Yep.
Like we support this great young guy, Luke Winder. He was an electrician 2.5 years ago, and his old man died, left him a little bit of money, and decided he was going to take his family and bought a farm at the back of Goulburn. And he now produces the most beautiful free-range organic ducks and beef and pork. And they don't even have a chemical in the house on the farm, let alone on the farm. And he is showing that the farm is just beautifully poly-farmed, or whatever the right terminology is for it. And then you can do it, and the productivity and the yield is really high. They don't even plough the fields. They use the pigs to plough the fields, and they rotate. And it's just this magnificent, lush property that was a nightmare when he took it or when he bought it.
I think I've met the bloke.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, so, I agree with all that. And so when you meet people like that, you want to try and support them and help them, because you think, this is different. This is the passionate guy again, that you're out there thinking to yourself, I want to try and help him.
Yeah.
So, he's I'm a sucker for doing that, if you like.
Yeah.
Mostly it hasn't done me a lot of good. But
have you had any wins with it, Gerry?
Not that I'd skied about, no. So,
can I ask your wife that you affectionately referred to as the mastermind behind, she was the student and she overtook the master.
Yeah.
What does she say about your agricultural investments?
Oh, she's 100% supporter. I mean, all the sort of things that I believe in, organic farming and not using fertilisers if possible, and breeding animals, growing things. Like she likes it as much as I do probably, but I'm probably more passionate and involved. Yeah. And then I do it all or get involved, and I say, have a look at what we did. And she's very supportive.
Yeah, amazing.
So, we've got a thing on a lucerne farm that I'm involved in at Tamworth now.
Yeah.
So in the old days, all the water would go into the river or the sewerage.
Yeah.
And so then you treat the sewerage, and then the treated sewerage goes into the river. And then at Tamworth, they decided, the council up there, they spent a lot of money. They've got 1,200 hectares, and they built a big dam and irrigation, 600 hectares to irrigate. And they leased it out to somebody that went broke. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I went in with another guy, and we're going to try and make it work. So we're growing lucerne and a few other things, and mostly lucerne.
Lucerne to feed to cattle, effectively?
Well, whatever you're going to use lucerne for, Horses eat a lot of lucerne, but the horse business is the biggest buyer of lucerne. Yeah. But the idea there is that we've got to try and make this pay for itself. The lucerne farm, the irrigation, and then all the sewerage water goes into this dam, never ends up in the river.
Yeah.
So the council's better off, the society up there's better off, and we've just got to make it work. So for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been working on making that work.
Yeah.
And if it will work, it's working. But we've just got to prove it up. And then I think to myself, gee, there's some recycling things. And I've talked to the local mayor up there in Tamworth about, he's talked to me about recycling and different things we might do into the future. So from my point of view, I think that's interesting because you've got a country town then that's not putting water into the sewage water into the river.
Yeah.
And you use it in a productive way.
Yeah.
So things like that I'm interested in because I think it's just good to do.
Yeah.
It's a good
but
thing to do.
you're clearly an incredibly smart guy that's been outrageously successful. Do you think agriculture is just fundamentally hard?
Yep.
Yeah.
It is. It's fundamentally. If you're interested in agriculture, I would say to you it's a good lifestyle. I hope you never want to make any money.
Yeah. So when you see the Ziggy Forresters and Gina Reinhardt and, you're now seeing some of these big corporate funds like their Rock Fund that, that's pension money that's looking to invest into agriculture, do you think that kind of capital behind it can change things and make things more successful, or is it just fundamentally flawed?
Fundamentally flawed, I think.
But we've all got to eat.
I know, but at the end of the day, the farmer only makes money when he sells his farm after 10, 20, 30, 50 years.
Yeah.
And then he's rich. But all the time he's operating that farm, he's poor.
Yeah.
So he made a fortune in a lifetime being a farmer when he sold his land, pretty much.
But lived very frugally in that.
But, in the old days when people were shearing sheep, you used to get, they called it a pound for a pound. You know what I'm talking about?
Well, this is the biggest problem, isn't it? The end consumer won't pay for the produce.
No, but in those days, you were getting 8 pounds. This is before dollars.
Yeah.
For the fleece.
Yeah.
Right? And the average wage for a man was £8 a week. Right? So that would be like shearing a sheep today and getting $1,000 for the wool off one sheep. So why do you think suddenly Australia had
sheep farmers everywhere?
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone wanted to own a sheep farm because you could make a fortune.
Yeah. But do you think, is it as simple as that, supply and demand, that there was all of a sudden too much supply, or?
Well, you have to go back to the Tulip in the 1600s or whenever
the first crash.
And Tulip was worth more than gold or something. So, and then you go back to the times when I was buying Charolais cows for $25,000 each 40 years ago that were worth $400 each, and I was paying $25,000. So if you were one of the first guys with the $25,000 cow, right, you were fine. But if you came in second, third, fourth, you lost all your money. It was only ever worth $400, right? But you were paying $25,000 for the cow at the time. Same sort of thing happened with deer, and alpacas, and you name an animal. At some stage, someone decided that this was the animal. Yeah, and those early people made all the money and everyone else lost all their money.
Ponzi scheme everywhere.
Well, but not meant to be, but that's how it was obvious. That's being early, you were in the first batch, you're okay. Yeah. Don't keep your stock, make sure you sell.
Yeah. But do you not think that's the same as the electronics business to a degree? You get in early, you own the market, or is it just different?
I got in early.
That's what I mean. You did get in early.
I got in 1961.
Yeah.
Right? That's 60 years ago
That's my point. But people have come in after you and been successful. Like, can't agriculture be like that?
Well, the problem is that you've got to find the rich farmer. Like, it's hard. They'll have a really good year. You might have a good wheat crop. Yeah. Then you have 3 bad crops.
Yeah. Maybe we're growing stuff in the wrong places.
No. Lamb prices can get up to $200 each, and the next year they're $50. Yeah, that sort of thing. So lamb at the moment, you should be able to make some money breeding fat lambs because they've never been this expensive. But it's still even hard doing that.
Yeah, because they're killing some of their produce and they're having to pay more for the feed and.
Look, if you said to me, what would I rather be in the world, it wouldn't be selling fridges. I'd rather be a farmer.
Well, you kind of are a farmer. But
I am, but I know. I know from bitter experience it's so hard being a farmer. And you talk to most farmers And they don't want their kids to be farmers, a lot of them, because they said, I've worked too hard for nothing for too long.
Yeah.
So then you talk about the average age of a farmer in Australia is 57 years of age.
Really?
I don't know what it is. I made that up, but it's something like that.
Because they work too hard, or...
But the average age of a farmer 50 years ago was probably 37 years of age, 20 years older now, because the young kids don't want to work on the farm.
Oh, I see what you're saying. They're working harder for longer.
They've watched their parents make no money, go through droughts, right? And they say, I'm going to the city.
Become an investment banker and give you a hard time.
Exactly. Or become an electrical shop owner or something. You know?
Yeah, classic. So what is the future then, Gerry, of agriculture? Like if we look at some of the big things that are going on at the moment, like the drought, do you think that there is something fundamentally changed with global warming, or is it just another part of nature's cycle?
In the big picture, I just don't know. I mean, I don't know how anyone understands this global warming. I mean, we've had things that wiped out the dinosaurs, and I've lived here for 5 minutes. Like the world's been around for billions of years, and the amount of where the ice age and all sorts of things. How does anyone know what's going on? I'm very sceptical about that sort of thing. Maybe there's climate change, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just find it difficult to believe all these people know.
Yeah.
And so all I know is that when it's been the hottest week of all time last week, but in 1903 it was hotter.
Yeah.
Well, that was 100 years ago. So
there's some very smart scientists that, they have evidence. They see the icebergs are melting, that the sea is rising. But equally, there's a bunch of smart scientists on the other side of the ledger that will say, well, we'll give you evidence that nothing's happening and that it is just part of nature.
I know, and that's how I'm just a mug. Right? Yeah. And I'm assuming you're the same.
Yeah, no, very much.
So it's hard for us. Who do we believe? We just don't know who to believe.
Yeah.
And what I do know is that minority voices, they get a lot of airtime.
Yeah.
And so when I read or things and I think that might be right, but it might not. I know that it's a minority sometimes that's saying this, trying to become a majority.
Yeah, especially in this space, whether it's climate change or, the vegans are, it's a big one that we face all the time. And, I'm all for ethical treatment of animals and things. But again, that whole activist group act on emotion rather than fact. And
it's so you see like those floods in Queensland, did we lose 300, 400, 500,000 cattle in one hit? That's huge.
Massive.
So when you look at that and you see 500,000 rotting cattle on the ground.
Yeah.
And you think, wow. But it hasn't had as much coverage as you might think.
Yeah.
Like the live cattle, when they stopped that, it was huge coverage on it. And you'll see some small thing like some animal being, I don't know, someone did something to some animal that was cruel or something like that, and it'll get a huge amount of coverage.
Yeah.
But then 500,000 cattle die and it gets very little coverage.
Very little, yeah.
So it's in the back of Queensland and it
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
They'll happily march into Vic's Meat Market down at Pyrmont and with their placards and tell us we're all murderers and things. But it's that myopic view of everything, that growing crops doesn't kill animals, and it's just fundamentally not true. And I think this is the balanced conversation that everyone needs to have, that we'd like to see factory farming disappear. But we've got 7 billion people. We're going to have 9.5 or 9.7 billion people by 2050, if you believe the forecasters, that we need to feed people somehow. And growing crops, particularly in a country like Australia where it's very arid land, isn't really a viable alternative. And not killing animals isn't a viable alternative either, because we don't have the land to feed them. We don't have the people to look after them, and they'll just die of natural causes. And and there'll be no feed for the rest of the animals to eat. It's a complicated equation.
Sure, and like some people like meat and others don't, and
that's okay.
Well, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you don't want to eat meat, don't eat meat.
I know.
Right?
I don't mind if you eat vegetables.
If you don't think chicken should be killed, well, don't eat chickens. But reality is that the great majority of people eat meat or chicken or fish or something like that. Don't eat all those fish, there'll be none left in the sea.
Yeah.
So, and the amount of fish farming that goes on, I've got a bit involved with that over the years too.
Yeah.
Prawns, fish.
How's that gone for you?
Well, I've mostly been an observer.
Really?
There. Well, because that's really dangerous when you get involved with fish farming or prawns or that. You got viruses and all sorts of things because they can wipe out your whole crop in one go.
Seafood
in one go.
Fundamentally hard.
So it's tempting to have a look at it.
Yeah.
So you look and you think, oh, gee, I've had enough to do with farming. I think I'll stick away from that.
Does that excite you as much as the land farming?
No.
Okay.
I'd much rather be involved with crops and animals.
Yeah. And have you read anything, got any views, Gerry, on some of this interesting stuff like the plant-based and the cell-based meat that is starting to get a lot of airplay and investment from the likes of Bill Gates and Warren Buffett?
Yeah, I've read about it, but anything that I've tasted that's not real meat tastes horrible.
So far it does.
Yeah.
But I think this is they believe they're moving, I think it's Berkeley University in California that the biomimicking so that it actually has the same texture, the same taste, etc. of meat, that they are moving closer towards that.
Well, maybe not.
Yeah.
And so, we might be having this conversation 30 years from now and it still tastes like crap. So it's like... But if it tastes really great and people can buy something that's not an animal and they like the taste better, well, obviously there won't be as many animals farmed in the world.
Yeah, which I think is a good outcome, and it's something that Anthony and I talk about a lot, is that if we can replace factory farming and with the cell-based stuff in particular, where it still is meat and they can get the formula right and it looks like meat, it tastes like meat, but doesn't have any of the growth hormones or antibiotics that typical farming practices do have. So it's a safer proposition for humans to eat and you don't have to raise and kill an animal, then that's a really good outcome because then you've got organic farmers like you and you've got native animals like the kangaroo that hopefully we can slowly over time convince people of the unbelievable benefit of, this extraordinary resource we have in this country that's very healthy, very lean, no carbon footprint, and yet we don't want to eat it.
You're not going to ever win that one.
You don't think so?
It'll be like killing and eating koala bears.
Yeah.
You will not ever win that. You won't change it. It's impossible.
Why?
Well, the mindset's already there. You can't eat kangaroos.
Because it's on the coat of arms and we watch Skippy or...
all of those things.
Really?
So at the end of the day, you'll be able to kill and eat a few, but not many.
Really? Don't you think it might be a bit like online shopping, Gerry, that
no, I don't.
It changes over time?
No. I definitely, like...
I'm going to have a wager on this one with you.
We're all going to eat kangaroo. Okay?
Well, I think
and crocodiles.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, crocodiles aren't vast, but kangaroos, there's 60 million of them running around at the moment, and it's an unbelievably healthy meat. And if we want to continue to eat the amount of meat we do, then we need to look at viable alternatives. And I think the needle will move very slowly, but people will slowly adopt it.
I've got some bad news for you. Yeah. You'll be a very old man and in a grave.
I'm already old, mate. It's okay. So
it ain't going to happen in your lifetime. Okay?
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to listen to you.
Okay.
I'm going to be like Peter Andrews.
Good on you.
I might have to come and ask you for a job.
And I admire you for not listening. Okay.
What's happening in the economy, Gerry? We need to talk a little bit because you've got your finger on the pulse. Like you really are consumer facing. Do you think we're sailing into a big headwind?
No.
I
think that business out there is quite flat at the moment. You've had people talking about interest rate rises now for a long time. Our interest rate at 1.5% is lower than it's ever been in my lifetime. When I was 60 years ago, say, interest rates were 2 or 3%.
Yeah.
Now they're 1.5%. That's the bank, Reserve Bank rate.
Yeah.
So that's going to rise. It's going to rise. Now, suddenly, it's not going to rise. The next move is down.
Yeah.
Now,
I
if you
heard Bill
ask me,
Evans from Westpac saying that today.
Okay, so I agree with Bill Evans.
Yeah.
I think the next move will be down. But I've been saying this for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That I don't think interest rates will go up.
Yeah.
But everyone else has been saying. We get economists in to talk to us in our boardrooms.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're always talking to people about money and interest rates and things. So mostly you just go with the crowd. Whatever most of the economists say, go along with it. But
of course,
the difference is that between them, I end up having a bit of a fight with them sometimes because I'm out there watching what's happening on a day-to-day basis in every store that I've got right across Australia. And at the moment, it's flat. Business is flat.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's harder than it was this time last year.
Yeah.
And if I'm finding it like that, nearly everyone else is.
Yeah.
So there will be certain retailers out there at the moment that are doing okay. Like we've got some stores doing okay, but then we've got others that are not.
Yeah.
And right across the board, it's flat. So in my opinion, there's not a chance in hell interest rates are going to go up. And it's nearly a certainty they'll come down.
Yeah.
So then if interest rates come down a little bit, then that might help the housing market a little bit. You can't afford to see inflation going stupid or something like that, but you can't. Ideally, most economists would like to see it 2 or 3 or 4% inflation rather than zero inflation because then you can get a bit of wage growth and it grows the economy. And but, you know, our wages are very high in Australia compared with a lot of other places in the world. So we can't let ourselves get out of balance.
Of course.
So if we start putting up our wages 10% and the rest of the world doesn't, then you just become more or less competitive.
Yeah.
And so a friend of mine just came back from Italy the other day. He said, you know how cheap it is to eat in Italy? The meals and different things and the wine. And he said, you know, you can go out and have, for $25, it costs you $100 in Australia for the same thing.
Yeah.
So lots of people now are spending all their money running overseas all the time. Airfares are cheap.
Yeah. Dollar's not so good anymore.
You can buy an airfare for $10 to go from one European city to, not $10, €10, from one city to another. Have you heard of that or not?
Yeah.
$10.
Yeah. It's like
€10.
Cost of a cab.
Cheaper than a cab.
Yeah.
€10 to fly 300, 500 kilometres away.
How's that work? How does an airline make money out of that? It's just like they've got a fixed cost base and they've got to just fill.
Well, I'm assuming that most of those they're the seats that they can't sell. So it's not costing them anything in some respect.
Yeah, other than petrol, a bit more petrol perhaps.
No,
a bit heavier.
Minor.
Yeah,
minor,
pretty minor. Yeah. So you're not overly concerned. You think we're things aren't great. We're not growing, but as a retailer, you're pretty comfortable, and that the government will make the right decisions, and you know that interest rates will come down rather than go up.
Well, it's not the government that makes a decision on interest rates; it's the Reserve Bank. So at the end of the day, I think interest rates will come down a bit. I think the economy will keep struggling here for quite a while. I don't see any immediate improvement in our economy, but maybe a year or two from now it'll be a bit better or a bit worse. But I tend to think it'll be more like what it is now.
What about the view that everything's cyclical and it's we're now 11 years since the GFC and there just has to be a correction at some point in time. Do you run by those same theories?
Yeah, I look at Japan and you look at interest rates there and they haven't changed for 20 years or more.
Yeah, but they've been fucked for 20 years too.
They've been what?
They've had no economic growth for 20 years.
Yeah, but if you go to Japan and walk down the street, everyone's well dressed. They've got plenty of money. They're in all the restaurants. Yeah. And you hear all these stories about Japan and no growth, and you think, what a lot of crap. They're all looking pretty good.
Yeah, they do look good. Well, they eat well, but they're a shrinking population. Like they're a very, very unique country in many ways. But no economic growth for a long time. Interest rates have been low for a long time. Population growth is on the wane.
Yep.
You know, super interesting.
Well, it's interesting because then you start to compare that to like Australia, where you've got
300,000 extra a year.
Well, it's more than that. It's like 350,000 plus. So you've got an extra million people in Australia every
3 years.
Yeah,
it's crazy, isn't it?
It's that. Well, the thing is that's happening because we're underpopulated compared with the rest of the world. I don't know how many people live in Indonesia, 200 million or something?
Yeah, 250, I think.
Yeah.
So, versus our 25.
And so you think to yourself, they're just a few little islands and they got 250 million. If you look down from above and you're God, you'd say, gee, there's too many people there. Move some down there.
Yeah, we got a lot of desert though, Gerry.
Well, yeah, but we've got a lot of good country too. And
we do.
Australia, when I was a kid, I was told when I went to school that Australia couldn't sustain a population of more than 8 million. That would be it.
Yeah, wow.
And I believed that. I thought, these people know what they're talking about. But now it's 25 million. And there is no doubt we could have 100 million people here.
Well, I know
we've got a lot of desert, but we've got a lot of country and a lot of water, especially in the north, that if that water was captured somehow and ran into our rivers or into dams and also, you could have a huge amount of productivity that doesn't exist here now.
Yeah.
And it's very sad when you look at a river now and you think, that used to be the Murray or the Darling, and they were great rivers, and now it's nearly bloody dry.
Yeah.
And all the trees on both sides are dying. So, we can't just ignore that. We can't say, oh, well, that's climate change or something like that. It's not climate change. We've done it as humans. We've destroyed those rivers.
Yeah, nature's philosophies.
And so we've got to figure out how you can get those rivers to flow again, put a lot of water in them. And maybe you've got to build a lot of dams. Maybe you've got to divert a lot of water from where there is a lot of water.
Yeah.
And you've got to do some nation-building things with water.
Yeah.
So you get certain politicians that talk about that from time to time. But there's no big move behind them because the people live in the city.
Yeah.
They don't really care that much about what's happening in Broken Hill or Dubbo or Mount Isa or wherever.
Yeah.
And so they're just not concerned. But a big picture politician is going to look at that and say, you're all mad.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do. Instead of building the NBN for 50 or 60 billion that might be superseded by 5G or something like that in 5 minutes, if that had gone into water, what a huge difference that would have made. It was just allocation of funds into the wrong place.
So when was the last visionary Prime Minister we had?
No, not in my lifetime.
Yeah, I've never seen one.
We've never had one.
Yeah. So where do you get the hope? We talked about your friend Peter, what's his name? Peter Andrews before, and John Anderson, and who was a cocky himself. Like, if you can't get someone like that to go out on a limb and risk his political career in something he believes in, then what hope have you got of a Malcolm Turnbull or someone doing it?
You've got no hope.
Yeah.
Right? So there is virtually no chance, the way things are at the moment, that you're going to have a nation-building water scheme.
Yeah.
And me looking at it, I think to myself, what's more important than that?
Nothing.
So we'll upgrade the road.
Yeah, that'll help.
Oh, yeah, that helps. That's a good. I don't have any problem with that. But should we be doing the water thing first?
Yeah. Should
we be working on restoring your rivers and then your trees will come to life again maybe?
Yeah.
Look, what about those great river gums? You ever looked at one?
Yeah.
It's dead.
Mm.
And
they're so beautiful, yeah.
And so we've destroyed that environment. So one day it'll happen, but it may be too late.
Yeah. Well, there's that great scientist, David Suzuki. He's a very extreme environmental activist, and he talks about it that the human race will be the fastest ever species to extinct itself. And when we're gone, the world will very quickly go back to a natural equilibrium. And then he compares it to ants that are just net contributors to the environment, that if we were to extinct ants, then the world would fundamentally implode in a very short period of time. you know.
Yeah, well, he's a bit like my dairy farmer that had the dream.
He's the dreamer. I've got a dream.
Just tell him he's a
dreamer. Yeah. Interesting theories, though. I know you've been a big spokesperson or for and against online retailing. I'm super curious. You know, it was 10 years ago or so that you said that, and you had that, you know, that well-documented stoush with Kogan and, you know, views on Amazon and things. Have you changed your mind a little bit, Gerry?
No, I was in online before most of my competitors. I mean, I went into online but 95, 6, 7, somewhere around about that. I couldn't make it work. Then I went in again about 2000, couldn't make it work.
Because of the logistics?
Oh, just the cost of doing it, the low sales, and yes, one day it'll be okay, but at the moment it's not. So then I go out there and say, listen, I tried this.
Didn't work.
Let me tell you, it doesn't work.
No one makes money.
No one makes money.
Yeah.
And so then, I can't remember the years, but say 2006, 7 and 8, everyone's telling me you've got to get back into online. And I'm saying, no, I'll get in when I'm ready, thank you. It's not working at the moment.
Yeah.
I know you sell a bit, but you don't make any money.
Yeah.
So maybe, I can't remember when it was, 2009 or 10 or 11, I'm back in.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this time I'm back in thinking it's going to happen sooner and I'll make some money.
Yeah.
But I'm still losing money on online.
Because you don't have the scale?
No. I'm one of the biggest online sellers in the country in terms of I've got a huge online. I've got 25 people just on live chat, right? So, you know, my online business is very strong. It's very good. It grows very
What's it
strong.
as a percentage of your business now?
Oh,
like
3 or
4%? Yeah, which is the Australian average, I think, now.
Oh, depends on the category. If you're in
retail,
furniture, you can't just talk retail, because when you talk retail, you're probably talking airline tickets as well. So they're bought online.
Yeah.
So when you talk furniture and bedding, online it's nothing, less than 1%. But when you talk refrigerators and washing machines and TVs, it can be somewhere between 2 and 4%.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk small appliances, kettles and jugs and toasters and that, it can be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%.
Yeah.
So it varies by category. And when
you
you talk computers, and it can be somewhere between 7 and 10 and 12%.
Yeah, understand.
So, but when you talk right across our business, it's more like 3%. And then you got to say to yourself, what's an online sale? So if somebody goes online, comes into the shop and buys in the shop, is that an online sale or a shop sale?
I'd say it's a shop sale, but yeah.
Okay, then you get someone that goes online, goes into the shop,
goes home
then
and
goes
buys
back
it.
and buys it online. What
That's
is
online.
it now?
That's online.
That's online.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a bit confusing.
It is a bit confusing.
But that's exactly how we do it. If the sale is made online, we call it an online sale.
Yeah.
But some of those online sales are really shop sales.
Got it.
So in the old days, you'd go back home, ring up on the telephone and order it.
Yeah.
That's a telephone sale.
Yeah.
So
correct. What's Katie's view on it?
Same as mine. We're very strong online supporters, but what we've found out, or we believe, that there are no online retailers in the world that we know of that make any money.
What about Amazon?
No, they lose a fortune.
They made $2 billion.
You're not listening.
Okay.
You're not. They've been doing this for 25 years.
Sure, they lost money for 14 years.
No, they've lost money for 25. They've never made money out of retailing online. They've made it out of something else.
What do they make it out of?
Oh, that's their cloud or whatever they're doing.
Okay, the service stuff.
They know now, 100% they know you'll never make money out of retail online. They never will, ever. So they've got to use that to take them to somewhere else where they'll make money.
Yeah.
So I've asked people, I said, find me an online retailer in the world that makes any money. Now, I know there are retailers out there online make money, but they make peanuts.
Mm.
And they say, oh, yeah, but one day we will. But hang on, mate, online's been around for 20 years nearly now.
Yeah, or more perhaps.
And so if you're going to make money, when are you going to make money? So how much are you going to lose before you finally break square and then make some?
Yeah.
So venture capital people have been backing them forever.
Yeah.
Mostly all losing their money.
Interesting.
And so they
I never
come
thought
to
it
me
through.
over the years, a lot of those online retailers, and they say, well, you buy us out. You don't believe in online. We've got all the, and you can buy us and
Got
be
the
very
smarts,
successful. I say, how much money do you make? Oh, nothing yet, but we will. Look at our, I say, oh, look at your projections. And if your projections are right, you will make money.
Yeah.
I frankly don't believe in your projections. So all I know is that the cost of running online is much, much greater than people tell you it is.
Yeah.
And then we've got certain people, without mentioning their names, that have got up to 30% returns. So they send the dress out or the shoe out,
Yeah.
30% come back. And what do
Yeah.
they do with the ones that come back?
Yeah.
Throw them away, burn them,
Resell
go into
them.
the tip. Oh, they send them to dry cleaners and send them out again.
Yeah.
So they do all of those things.
Yeah, of course.
But the cost of doing that, it's not possible to make money. It's how much do you lose?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I go on like that, and people say, "Oh, you don't believe in the internet, or you don't believe in online, and you're a non-believer." I say, I just want to tell it the way it is.
The way it is, yeah.
You don't want to listen to the way it is.
Yeah.
You want to listen to what you've listened to people that don't know what they're talking about. They're either journalists or analysts or something that have never been in business, never sold anything online, but believe the propaganda.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to believe that and you think that's the way it works, good luck to you.
What about Kogan then? Is he made money?
No, peanuts. Peanuts.
Yeah.
And then sold all his shares as well.
Yeah, got it.
So,
So it's the poor investors that are.
well, like he's made a little bit.
Yeah.
But what he made you don't want. He doesn't want. He'd sell his shares and run.
Yeah, get it. So where would you be investing, Gerry? Outside of Harvey Norman, what's
Where do I invest?
No, well, yeah. Where's the opportunity that you're seeing at the moment, business wise, and for an investor, not for an operator?
Well, if you're an investor, what is an investor? A person that has no knowledge of investing, and they are going to invest. People that haven't got much knowledge, I'd suggest they buy a unit or a house and rent it out.
Yeah.
Because they're never going to make much doing that, but when they sell the house or unit one day they will. So I think that's for normal people okay. Or you invest with funds and put it into or real estate investment trusts and things like that. And you might get somewhere between 5 and 10% on some of those things, but some of those people go broke.
Yeah.
So then there's the other, he's super cautious. He's lost his money a few times, puts it in the bank and fixed interest at 2.25% or something.
Yeah, that's no good.
So I know, but then you're a sophisticated investor. I'm regarded as a sophisticated investor.
Yeah.
And so I'm supposed to know what I'm doing. And I think to myself, I just lost 70 million on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
Why would someone invest money with me?
Yeah, that's a good question.
And so then I start Harvey Norman, and the people that invested in that multiplied their money by 100 times.
Yeah.
Between 1987 and 2000, if you'd put $1 into Harvey Norman, it turned into 100. And in that time, no one in Australia, no public company in Australia outperformed Harvey Norman from 87 to 2000. So I've been a genius and I've been a mug.
Yeah.
So then, and I'm a sophisticated investor.
Yeah, get it.
Right? So I'm supposed to be smart,
Yeah.
but I know I'm not.
Yeah, well,
I know I've got
maybe that's where the genius comes from, Gerry, is that awareness that none of us are that smart.
Well, I think we should all know that.
Some of us just don't realise it. Yeah,
that you're pretty dumb.
Yeah, I know I am. Yeah. What about your ventures with the Rat Pack, Carnegie, Singo, the pubs and things? Has that done well for you?
Well, I've just come from a meeting today with Carnegie.
Yeah, he's a smart guy.
He is.
Yeah,
but like some of these friends I've got over the years, the Singletons and the Carnegies and all these sort of people, I love them because they're different.
Yeah, I get it.
And they're like Peter Andrews or something like that. You don't know what's going to come out of their mouth next, okay? And they come out with some outrageous stuff. But their brains are running around 100 miles an hour, and they're trying to outwit you and outsmart you every inch of the way.
Yeah.
And if you're in business with them on some of those deals they'll go into, I don't want to know anything about.
Yeah.
And then I go into something else with them, and it's wonderful. Without me going through a heap of things we've done over the years, we've had some wonderful successes.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting because you're not walking down that same path every day. You're out there on a limb.
Having a go.
Yeah.
Having a go. How old are you now, Gerry? You look...
I'm 79.
79. How do you stay so well? You play tennis, yeah?
I play tennis 2 or 3 times a week. I go to golf every now and again. I do a bit of exercise.
Yeah. You eat well?
I eat very well.
Yeah.
I always have 2, 3, 4 pieces of fruit every day. I eat lots of vegetables.
Good quality meat?
I buy off Victor Churchill sometimes.
Good.
So,
pleased to hear that.
Only when I've got spare money, because but it's good. I always go into Victor Churchill knowing I never ask the price. I just want the quality.
We shouldn't be in there if you ask the price.
No,
it's the best in the world.
I walk out of there now. That pork you sell. My wife.
Your pork.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's your pork. You're
it's
selling
our pork.
it. You know?
Give it a plug, Gerry. Which one are we talking about?
Well, it's the Berkshire, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Byron Bay.
If you want a pork chop,
yeah,
right, and you want the best pork chop, it's go to Victor Churchill's, buy that pork chop, and I guarantee you will never want to eat the other pork chop again.
Yeah,
there is such a difference.
Mm.
And even when my wife does a curry with a pork curry, that curry tastes better.
Magical, yeah.
It's better because that pork has got it's got a bit of a marble in it.
Yeah.
And and you get the taste.
It's incredible.
And if you're into your food, you know one of the most important things is the ingredient.
Yeah.
And so when I grow
the most important thing.
The most. So when I grow my own pig or cattle or whatever it is, I know that or cucumber or pumpkin or potato or broccoli. Like I grow my own broccoli, okay? There is no comparison between the broccoli I grow and what you get in the shop.
Yeah.
The one I grow tastes 20 times better. I grow my own asparagus, right? Yeah. The asparagus you buy in the shop is shit compared with what I grow.
Yeah.
So there's some things like broccoli and asparagus where there is a huge difference. Potatoes and pumpkins, you can hardly tell the difference.
Yeah. Although I'd argue the nutritional quality is probably way better if you grow it yourself.
Yeah, because I'm not using fertilizers.
Yeah, fertilizers
I'm using
pesticides and all the rubbish, I
have to, spray things sometimes because otherwise the bug gets me. But mostly I'm not using fertilizers. I'm just using compost and manure or whatever. So, the taste of that, I don't grow it to save money.
No, I don't think you need to.
I grow it because it tastes twice as good.
Yeah, and it's twice as good for you.
So when I go to Victor Churchill, right, and I get my chop, Berkshire,
lovely.
and then I've got my broccoli and asparagus down the back, right, and peas and beans that I grow myself and put that all on the plate. I can't go to a restaurant and get that. No restaurant.
No restaurant.
No restaurant.
Maybe a couple, but
none. There's no one
Don't listen to that, boys.
because I've got the vegetable that I picked.
Yeah, got it.
Half an hour ago.
Got it.
So when you eat like that, no one can give you that.
No, I agree. I think it's a wonderful lesson, and you're a wonderful testament to living large and looking after yourself, but having a bit of fun on the way.
Now I've got a walnut tree. How many people grow a walnut? Have you ever eaten fresh walnuts off a tree?
I have. They're magical.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So my walnuts at the moment are just about ready, but I've got a slight problem. The bird. Right? If he gets there before I do, it's like the fig tree down
Can't
the
you
back.
cover them?
Well, you can, and last year I did, but this year I haven't. But I've got a lot of leaf on that tree. So far, the bird hasn't found it. Now, within 3 weeks, I'll have really good fresh walnuts. And if you've never had fresh walnuts, it's like, hell, I didn't know a walnut could taste this good.
Yeah. Well, it's like the pork you're talking about too. Gerry, it's been wonderful, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much for having me.
My pleasure.
Good on you.